Before we start today, if you haven't yet, please check us out on Patreon. If you just search for So Much Crime, So Little Time, or go to patreon.com/so much crime, so little time, you can become a paid member and help support the show. Also, you'll get some access to bonus content, including finding out what we're going to cover well before we cover it, so you can listen ahead and be part of the conversation.
While you're on Spotify or Apple or YouTube or wherever you get your podcast, don't forget to rate, subscribe, follow, do all the things so that other people can start seeing the podcast in their feeds too. And while you're at it, tell your friends, your family, your enemies, your frenemies, your dogs, your cats. Tell everyone who will listen. Dogs and cats don't have anything to listen to us on, though.
Kim Avis was a local celebrity in Inverness, Scotland. A local eccentric. Everyone knew him.
But when he disappeared off the coast of California, things got very strange.
Did he drown? Or was he an international fugitive trying to escape decades of crimes that no one knew about?
We'll preview the BBC podcast Dead Man Running on this episode of So Much Crime,
So Little Time. Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee, and in this episode we'll introduce you to Dead Man Running, a podcast from BBC Scotland.
After that, we're going to tackle a true crime question of the week.
It's a great one. If you haven't listened to Dead Man Running, that's great. This is one of our preview episodes. We're only going to introduce you to the podcast and cover parts of the very first episode. There will be no spoilers for what's to come. You'll also find a link to Dead Man Running in our show notes.
In our next episode, we'll discuss the whole series. So if this is your first time here, this is pretty much how we structure the show. In our preview episodes, we only talk about the first episode, so you can decide if you want to listen to it. In our full recap episodes, we go through everything. But this is a preview episode. Our goal right now is to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time.
But before we jump into the crime, the victims, the perpetrator, and the setting, let's take a light-hearted view at a time when this all played out. We're talking February 2019. We're going to hop into the time machine. Jeff, take it away.
All right, Dee. February 2019 was an exciting time in the world. I have a few different quick things for you. First of all, I don't know if you've ever heard of a basketball player named Caitlin Clark. Have you ever heard of her?
It rings a bell, all right. Is she not world renowned at this stage? I
Well,
hope the Irish have heard of her.
In 2024, she is a professional WNBA player, but in 2019, she was still in high school. And she scored 60 points in a game, which was the second most in Iowa for a women's basketball player in high school, which is kind of ridiculous that someone scored more than that. Anyway, so that happened. So she was still in high school, scoring all the points. Two other bits from the news. R. Kelly was arrested. That happened in February 2019.
Sorry, I feel like he's been arrested many times.
Well,
Is that the one and only arrest?
I don't know, but it was one of them at least. Also, here's a fun fact. There was a report from the University of Australia, and I feel like these reports come and go in the news, but if we don't keep talking about them, people forget about it. There was a report that honeybees can add and subtract and understand the concept of zero. That almost got Dee to spit on her microphone.
I just didn't expect you to go from R. Kelly to honeybees. It was such a random pivot.
So
I was like, I'm going to take a sip
machine.
of my drink at the moment. And then I was like, bad timing. Bad timing.
All right, one last thing from the time machine. I want to share with you some song lyrics, as we love to do.
Oh, it's my favorite.
So this is from an artist who in February of 2019 had 4 songs on the Billboard Hot 100, including the one I'm going to read from the lyrics to now. Are you ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. My wrist, stop watching. My neck is flossing. Make big deposits. My gloss is poppin'. You like my hair? Gee, thanks. Just bought it. I see it. I like it. I want it. I got it.
I have no idea. Is this a female artist?
It is a female artist.
Is it Doja Cat?
No, although that's a really good guess.
Thank you. But you're wrong. Is
You
that
are
what you're
wrong.
saying? My dad would say nearly never won the race.
Do you want me to tell you who it is?
Give me a clue.
She is about to star in a major movie musical based on a Broadway show.
Ariana Grande?
Ariana Grande. This is,
Oh my goodness.
This is from Seven Rings, which I just want to appreciate the poetry of this song. And then, so I read just 4 lines from it.
Whether you're taking the piss or not, I want to appreciate the poetry of the song. You can't like Ariana Grande's poetry, but dislike Ian Bailey's, surely.
I think Ariana Grande has a lot more talent than Ian Bailey.
I mean, of course.
Or whoever writes her songs. If she doesn't, I don't know. Does she write her own songs? I have no idea.
Mm.
Anyway, well, I don't have the whole verse for a later part of the song, but I noticed that she rhymes I think it's the next verse. She rhymes misses with bitches, which is kind of a slant rhyme, but I appreciate where she's going with that. And then riches. So misses, bitches, riches. And then addiction, which doesn't seem like it rhymes, but she kind of makes it rhyme in the song.
As in, she just doesn't say it right.
It's all, I mean, she has a very nice voice. She's a good singer. I appreciate that. Anyway, that's our time machine for today.
Okay, quick overview of the podcast Dead Man Running. It's from BBC Scotland. This podcast came out in the spring of 2024. And there are 6 episodes, each about 30 minutes long, which we love. The host is Miles Bonner, a journalist for BBC Scotland. So, Jeff, tell me, thoughts? Let's start with the host. Love starting with the host.
Love starting with the host. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Miles Bonner?
I feel like we keep finding these. I love that the host was from the area in Inverness in Scotland and had known of Kim Avis growing up. We've seen this before, but I really think it adds to the whole vibe. It really adds depth to the whole podcast, to the whole story, to have someone who has a real knowledge of the place. So for context, Miles Bonner said he heard about this missing man on the news, and he literally says, my WhatsApp group from my friends from home started blowing up. Did you see Kim Avis? Kim has gone missing. Kim has gone missing. That was just such a unique perspective, maybe.
Yeah.
I said about 5 times there. Sorry.
All right. All you can do
Sorry,
is
Paxton.
you can do better going forward. Yeah, I agree. I think that connection really adds to the story, and I'm glad we keep finding these. I mean, I guess maybe it makes sense that there are journalists who choose to do these podcasts on stories that they have some connection to that are from their hometowns or something like that. Yeah, I thought he did a great job. I also kind of like the way this one began. So this one, it's one of the first things he says in the podcast, that this is somebody that was a local character that he had known. But then we pivot to this 911 call from California on this beach near Carmel, so Monastery Beach, and this is the son of Kim Avis saying that he's gone missing, that he was swimming off the coast. And then we kind of jump around. We get kind of that collage start, which I think a lot of podcasts do, where you've got news clips, and you've got different people talking, and you don't know who everyone is, but you kind of get this broader picture of what's to come. And I think the portrait it portrays is that this is sort of a mysterious character that people have a lot of different opinions on. Some people seem to really like him, some people don't. But it's not really clear from the start what the crime is, right? We know there's a man who's purportedly missing off the beach, but at the start we really don't know anything, which is I kind of I thought that drew me in. It seemed like a good mystery, and I kind of wanted to know more, especially because there's that connection with the host.
Yeah, and I totally agree. I think the other mystery to it is we start by hearing the host and his connection to Inverness in Scotland, and then we've this pivot to California, and it's this just, you're not really expecting the two to connect.
No.
It's not where you're thinking it's going to go. I also love Carmel by the Sea. It's one of my favorite places around California that I've been to. So
Have you been to this
wanna go to
beach?
that
We should.
I haven't been to that particular beach.
Okay. So why don't we do a quick pivot onto this beach? We're going to take the show over to the beach and record.
Okay.
Get some wave sounds.
See you in 1 hour 50.
So I have been to this beach, or I've been either this beach or the beach next to it. They're all kind of the same, but this beach, as we find out in this episode, is super dangerous. And I wanted to talk a little.
They dub it Mortuary Beach.
Mortuary Beach, yeah, and basically it's a beach where you shouldn't go in the water because just like the geography of it, so I mean I think there's a general rule about beaches, at least certainly in California, places where the ocean can be a little unpredictable, to never turn your back on the water because there can be kind of like rogue waves and things that come in and will catch people. But here it's particularly dangerous because there's a very strong current and the ocean just kind of like the ocean floor just drops off very quickly. So if you do get pulled out into the water, or if you're out swimming in the water, it is very easy to get out way further than you intended to be, and it's really unsafe. So I looked this up because I remember going there, and I remember taking my young children there and being like very kind of cautious of them not getting too close to the water. And I think like you go to some beaches and you don't really think about this. You think like, oh, you can just go play in the water and it's totally safe. But there are beaches like this one in California that you really don't go in the water, right? Like you really,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember being on Santa Cruz Beach within the first few months of us being here. And a lifeguard came up to us because the kids were playing in the water, and he said, do not let them in higher than their ankles without having your hand on them.
Yeah.
And I thought, that seems mad. Obviously, I was straight away hands over the kids. Paul was like, that seems a bit dramatic. But apparently it's to do with the sneaker waves in that case, which they can really just take you out so quickly. But yeah, so that was kind of an extra intrigue about the beach.
Yeah, I wanted to share just a little bit of what I looked up about this beach, not just geography, but about some of the events that have happened there. So about 30 people are known to have drowned there, which seems like a lot. And there were two examples that I pulled. One was in 2015. This woman, Linda June, who was from Illinois, she was on vacation with her family, and a wave came in and pulled her and another person out into the water. She didn't survive. So she was just walking along the shore and got pulled out by a wave and drowned. That was in 2015. In 2017, there was a 9-year-old boy from Southern California who, same thing basically happened. He was there with his family and he just got pulled out by a wave. One interesting thing at this beach, so I don't know if this is still the case there, but at least in the past, the county had posted signs that aren't just like signs about like don't go near the water. There's actually signs with articles about the people who have drowned at that beach posted at the beach by the county,
because to really deter people.
Yeah,
Whoa.
because I think they think like just posting a sign of like, don't turn your back on the ocean, or don't let your kids too close to the water isn't enough. So they actually posted news articles about the however many people who have died there, which I feel like that was maybe there when I took my kids there and was like, yeah, let's stay 50 feet off the water and just play in the sand up here. Yeah. Anyway, that's the beach. So if you're not familiar with California, so this is Carmel, which is south of Monterey, which is about, I don't know, an hour and a half south of San Francisco, several hours north of Los Angeles. It's between Los Angeles and San Francisco.
It's between Santa Barbara and San Francisco, really. Is it? It's about an hour and a half. Yeah, be smack in the middle of Santa Barbara and San Francisco.
That sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. The setting was very mysterious. And that connection. The other thing, so we go on to hear about Kim Avis and how people back in Inverness thought of him. So when he apparently he just arrived one day. He just appeared one day. And when he initially arrived, everyone is feeling very wary of him. He wore eccentric clothing. He was a busker at times. Did you want to interrupt?
Yeah, like a bad busker. They played a clip of him singing, and it sounds like he wasn't. He wasn't very good. Also, they described him as like looking like a gaunt Mick Jagger, which I feel like Mick Jagger is gaunt.
Mick Jagger is so gaunt, yeah. But then they go on to talk about his Good Samaritan work, his charity work, or like potential charity work. There was this inference as if, he said he would swim Loch Ness
Yeah.
to raise money for charity. Oh, but nobody ever saw him finishing it. If he still raised money for charity, to be honest, I don't actually care if he's lying or not. He got
But
into the water, he swam a bit, he raises money for charity. That, I don't know.
so yeah, and
No?
so Inverness is near Loch Ness, which I feel like everybody knows Loch Ness for the monster, right? Which doesn't come up in the story, which was a little bit of a bummer that they didn't talk about him encountering the monster when he
Not
swam.
yet, anyway, not in the first episode.
But I didn't know this. So did you know? Have you been to Loch Ness? Let me ask that one first.
No, I've never been to Scotland, actually.
So Loch Ness is 1.7 miles. Because at one point somebody says, "Oh, he swam the width, not the length." And I thought, well, what does that really matter? Turns out it really matters because Loch Ness is 1.7 miles wide. So that's a long swim. I don't think I could swim 1.7 miles, especially it's super cold water, and it's apparently very hard to swim in. It's 22 and a half miles long. It is a super thin long. So if he's like does the width, not the length, that's a huge difference.
Big difference, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, so I again, this is my other fun fact for this episode. I looked up if people who have swum the length of Loch Ness, and the first time it happened was in 1966. This woman, Brenda Sherratt, I don't know how to say her name. Anyway, it took her 31 hours and 27 minutes to do it. Yeah, in this freezing cold.
The 22 miles.
No, the length, the 22.5.
Yeah.
22.5 miles.
But he didn't swim the length of it, did he?
I don't think he possibly did. Yeah. Because also in September of 2022, this guy, Ross Edgley, tried to do the world's longest open water nonstop swim in Loch Ness. He swam for 52 hours and 39 minutes and had to stop because he got hypothermia and cellulitis. Because it was so cold. It's a freezing cold lake. Anyway.
Doesn't sound like any fun. But my point is, well, I have 2 points on this. First of all, why is no one watching him swim the lake if he's raising money for charity? One of his friends apparently said he did it. But why is no one else staying? Even the charity that he's raising money for aren't there. That just baffles me.
It's weird. The guy just says, "I'm going to go swim this lake and raise some money for charity." And like he comes back like wet? And they're like, "Okay, I guess you did it." I don't know.
But like, who is giving him money for it and not going out to see it? Anyway.
Would you wait? Okay, this is this is not a true crime question of the week. This is just a question. Would you pay someone to swim across a cold lake?
No, but if I wouldn't ask them to swim across a cold lake for money for charity. I'll just give the money to charity if that's what I want to do. But if someone said, I'm going to do this for charity, I would support it.
Okay. I feel like I like to only give to charity if someone's willing to do something stupid to earn it. Is that a weird standard to have?
I think that says more about you than anything else. But anyway,
on the charity
I will
topic,
say at this point, I'm like, at least he didn't take the money, unless he did. Unless we find out, later that he did take the money. But even if he's lying and he doesn't do the full swim, I don't really care.
But okay, on the charity thing though, there's a couple other things they bring up which also just rang kind of weird to me. Like there's
really weird.
Yeah, so there's an example of where there was just a young person who was suicidal, and he talked that person out of committing suicide. There was a time where he was strangely like at the bedside of this woman who just gave birth. Like what?
I remember hearing that as well and being like, what are they talking about? Did he not raise money for the unit and he was getting a photo beside a woman who just gave birth?
That one didn't make any sense. And then, but it goes from weird to weirder because then there was a story of a police officer who gets thrown through like a plate glass window, who he's just there to help.
I don't know. Apparently he always wants the media around to report on his Good Samaritan work.
Which,
I mean, we're not going to diss a Good Samaritan.
No, but it does seem like, and there are a lot of clips of him in the news. So it seems like he was constantly, for a guy from this, I think, relatively small town in Scotland, he seemed to get on the news a lot. Like he was.
But it's the local news.
That's okay. Fair enough. Local news.
But also, I wonder, are we going in with bias here? Because if you heard of someone near where we're based in the media who has done these things, done charity, does charity swims, and has been involved in helping people with suicidal thoughts or on the brink of suicide and talking them down, and even intervened with some attacks on the street, you wouldn't say he's a weirdo or she's a weirdo or there's something off, there's something fishy about them. But we're going into this knowing that there's something fishy about him.
We are. It's also just sort of strange that he's always, I mean, the way it's presented here, he's always in these places when these things are happening, right?
Like
that's.
Is he the person who threw the policeman out the window and then came over? Like, what is happening here?
That was definitely the first thing I thought. But like, I feel like they would have said that, right? Like that would have been part of the story.
Yeah, it was definitely very odd. And then we get some strange rumors about him, people falling out with him. Then really strange rumors about him.
Mm-hmm.
Him offering young girls to bring young girls out in his van to Loch Ness. That is very strange. Very, very strange. And then the tourists.
Yeah.
So tourists that come there, he offers to be their tour guide. And again, these are rumors. He offers to be their tour guide, and seemingly he brings them out to Loch Ness, but refuses to bring them back to civilization unless they do X, Y, or Z. And you can fill in the blanks. We're left to fill in the blanks of what he's asking them to do.
Well, yeah. Well, sometimes we are and sometimes we aren't, because in some of the examples of these girls who are 14, 15, 16, we hear it is about like he's making advances on them. And so he's, I think at this time, in his 40s.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, either way, he's an adult and they're 14 years old. That's not okay. There is a bizarre line here of this guy, Carl McEwen, who I guess when he was looking at buying a car, Kim told him to get a panel van. He said, "Women love panel vans." That's something I've never heard before.
Women love panel vans, or that when
Yeah.
you're buying a car, you need to think about what women will like when you're buying the car.
Well, that part I think a lot of men think about, like, which is maybe idiotic, but it is true. I will just always think of, there's a line from the show Archer where there's a panel van and someone says, "That van has probable cause written all over it," which is applicable here.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then we hear from Emma, who speaks about being 14. So Emma is now a woman, but was 14 at the time of this incident in particular, where she was talking about how she had just come out as a lesbian to her family, and she often hung around near where Kim had a stall. He used to sell jewellery. And Kim said, "Oh, who are you waiting for?" And she said, "Oh, just my girlfriend." Oh, my voice went squeaky there, sorry. "Oh, just my girlfriend." And she said something changed in him. And he asked her to go to the back of his van. And she said she knew from the way he was asking that it was weird. And she said, No, I'm going to go over here," and moved away from him. And she describes it as she said it was a clear, casual sexual advance to a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I don't know if that such thing exists. Does it? A casual sexual advance? That's the quote that they use. But it's when you're talking about a 14-year-old and you're talking about a 40-year-old man,
that
doesn't exist.
No. And this is one of the things I want to ask you about, because I feel like we've had some fun with some of the more like goofy aspects of this character and of this podcast, but like at the heart of it, we're talking about a guy who seems to be
Predator.
pursuing, like a sexual predator of teenage girls, which is a very serious and very dark topic. But I feel like it's other than, I mean, that one example was very clear, but it's sort of more talked about in sort of abstract terms throughout this
It's
episode.
murky.
Yeah.
It's murky. I was toying with the idea. I wonder, I'd love to ask Miles Bonner about it. Is it, the equivalent of Loch Ness, the murky waters, did he swim it or not, versus like the murky allegations, the murkiness of who he is? Is that what they were aiming for in tying this first episode all together?
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I would love to hear why he presented it this way, right? Because obviously as a reporter who has this story mapped out, he must know what's to come, right? He knows where, like, what the crime is and what's going to happen, whereas we don't, right? We're learning just what he presents to us. So yeah, I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I found it a very interesting. I feel like they covered quite a lot in quite a short amount of time, and I did find it a very interesting episode. It's short, it's sweet, and it leaves me with so many questions. Where is he from? What's his real name? Is
Right.
it Avis? Is it Gordon? Is he from a rich family? Are the allegations about him true? There's so many questions we're left with. And then there's this big twist at the end. So as you said, the intro has this play of the media clips of this man who goes missing in California, the Scottish man. And then the end, we loop back to that. But it's not media clips of him gone missing. It's media clips of talking about, was this a hoax? This is a wanted man on the run. So at the start, we feel maybe, or we're led to feel maybe sympathy or empathy for what's happened to him. And by the end, we are actually thinking, this is a hoax. What is he wanted for? We're hearing a lot about faking charity work, maybe faking being a good Samaritan, and we're hearing about potential sexual predators. So we're left with so many questions at the end.
Yeah.
It felt like it went somewhere very different to where I thought it was going to go after the first 5 minutes.
How does that impact you in terms of how eager you are to keep going on to the next episode?
I mean, when there's a question, I want an answer.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely eager to go forward. What about you?
Yeah, I think the same. I think that this sets up so many mysteries, and I am really curious. I'm curious to hear how it's going to evolve in terms of sort of the tone, right? Like, I think this one does what I think a lot of podcasts we listen to does, where there's a little bit of a collage element at the beginning, and I'm curious how, like, if that's going to continue through. But this is a relatively short series compared to a lot of things we listen to, so there's not a lot of time to go too deep on things. So yeah, I'm really curious to see how he handles that, how the host handles that going forward, and just what some of the answers are to some of these open questions. There's a lot of open questions coming out of this one.
There are. In terms of this in comparison to anything else that we've listened to, I'm very sorry to everyone who's going to listen to me for the next 30 seconds. I'm getting real Ian Bailey vibes.
Oh, yeah.
He called himself a wolf, is a quote we hear from this episode. He's got a stall at a local market. He's an outsider. And he likes to pretend to be creative. So Ian obviously was mad into his poetry, and this guy is mad into his busking. And I'm a bit irked. I'm feeling a little bit like, leave me alone, Ian Bailey.
Some West Cork vibes here.
Yeah.
Yeah, in Ireland and Scotland, I mean, geographically close. That's all I got. No, I think you're right.
It's quite green.
Yes.
Well, we're in a more rural setting as well.
Yeah, I mean, West Cork was on the edge of Ireland, and this is this is definitely kind of out there in a rural area, well, near Loch Ness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the wolf thing
anyway.
caught my ear, and I hope that's not a big part of this going forward.
I know. Turns out it was Ian Bailey all along.
Oh, I hope that's not the case.
Imagine we accidentally did that. Alrighty, join us next time to discuss our full recap of this. I hope you enjoy listening to Dead Man Running, if you're listening along. But don't go just yet, because we do now have our true crime question of the week. Doo-doo-doo.
Before we get to our true crime question of the week, just one more reminder. If you want to get in the know on all the things that are coming up on the show, hear some bonus content, and just help support us making this show, check out our Patreon. You can become a paid member for just $5 a month, and we would love to have you join. So go to patreon.com and search for So Much Crime, So Little Time, or go to patreon.com/So Much Crime, So Little Time to join. Thank you.
Okay, next, Jeff, we're on to the true crime question of the week. We hear at the tail end of episode 1 of Dead Man Running, how potentially this was a hoax. This was a wanted man who had faked his own death. And that sparked the question in us. If you were to fake your own death, how would you do it? Jeff, get off the fence and give me an answer.
Well, fortunately, I've given this question a lot of thought over the years, because who knows when you're going to have to fake your own death and disappear. What, have you not? You haven't given this
No,
thought?
I mean, my mind does crazy things. Of course I have.
I definitely wouldn't do it the way he does it here, where you pretend to go swimming in the Pacific Ocean and disappear, because I think everyone who knows me knows that was something I would never do, and it's totally unbelievable.
I'm also so confused about the clothes.
What about the clothes?
Well, he left his clothes in a neat pile at the edge of the beach.
Isn't that what you do when you go swimming?
Yeah, but then what's he wearing when he's running away?
D, it was staged. That's the whole point.
Yeah, that's a good point. So does he have another pair of clothes with him?
You have not thought about this, have you? If you're gonna fake your own death, you have to leave some clues behind. All right.
No, I know.
Okay.
Go on.
So
How would you do it?
Well, so I was just actually reading today about a guy who went for a hike in the Santa Cruz Mountains and disappeared for about 10 or 11 days. And fortunately, he was found safe, alive.
He went out for a 3-hour hike and he didn't come back for 10 days.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. But what's amazing about that, and I don't think people, even like who live where we live in the Bay Area, appreciate this, but even in a very like seemingly small section of mountains, because the Santa Cruz Mountains are bordered on one side by, well, the Pacific Ocean, and the other side by Silicon Valley. And it's a narrow peninsula, but there's a lot of places to get lost in those woods, right? Like it's very easy to get lost very quickly out there. And I feel like as someone who likes to hike, that's probably what I would do, because that's, I think, believable that I just went out for a hike and then never came back. And you hear stories about that, about people who just sort of disappear into the woods.
But where what's your plan like? Where are you going?
Well, I can't tell you that part. That's the
So
secret.
you're going to park your car, go for a walk. Are you going to have another car picking you up at some other point? Or are you just actually going to get lost in the woods?
Well, maybe just get lost in the woods and become a person who lives in the woods. That's option 1. Option 2, yeah, I certainly could have a car or another form of transportation. I could have a helicopter just stashed on a helipad on a clearing somewhere in the woods.
A helicopter. You could have a helicopter on a helipad. Where are you going if you run away?
Again, I can't tell you that part. That's the whole point.
Okay.
I have to disappear.
I thought his strategy wasn't that bad, actually. Like, him, if you go for a swim and you don't come back, sure, the ocean's very big.
Yeah, I just think it has to be believable.
This is true.
It has to be within something that people believe that you would do. It's not so out of character that it's obviously a setup.
And I think this is where it becomes difficult for me, because I don't take risks. I don't do things that are scary or potentially dangerous. So it's kind of hard. Maybe like on a cruise ship.
Where are you going to go on a cruise ship?
Maybe I could pretend to fall off the ship, but I'll end up in like a cute little dinghy. The dinghy will bring me ashore.
And the 5,000 people on the boat don't see you in the dinghy.
They're like, bye. I don't know.
You know, you've given me a lot of grief for not answering these questions, but I feel like
I'm trying to answer it. I
Okay.
just don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll just like vanish into thin air. Do you know what? Since I've moved here, I've been to New York more times than I've been to anywhere. Maybe I'll just go on a trip to New York and never come back.
I mean, a lot of people disappear in New York.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said helipad. That was what, option 3. Option 4 is hot air balloon. Think about that. You get in a hot air balloon, you go up in the sky, you drift off. Where do you land? Who knows? Like, you're just off, drifting away, never to be seen again.
I don't know. Is this telling something more about you than it is of me, that I haven't thought about this as much to the extent you have? You have a map and everything. He's shown me a map for those of you who can't see the video footage here. Map planned out from A to B.
It's just a piece of paper with some crayon drawings on it and an X. And look, when you go for hikes, I've gone for hikes alone in the woods, like multi-hour hikes. And yeah, I mean, I've certainly thought about like, oh shoot, like what if I actually do get lost? One time I actually did get lost in the Santa Cruz Mountains just for maybe like an hour before I realized where the trail was. But it was supposed to be like a 2-hour hike and it turned into like a 3 or 4 hour. I think it was like a 3-hour hike. It wasn't that bad. But there was a moment certainly there was like, maybe I just live here now. Maybe I'm just in the woods.
Just a mountain man.
Yeah. Wish I'd brought more snacks. And this is where
this is what this man was saying. He didn't bring anything because he only thought he was going out for 3 hours.
Yeah. He did have a knife with him, which I think I don't always hike with. Maybe I will now. I didn't always hike with some type of tool or weapon.
So last year, sorry, very randomly, last year for our anniversary, I got Paul a what's it called? Like a Swiss Army knife.
Like a Leatherman?
I don't know what that is.
It's like
the
one probably within arm's
the
reach
wooden
of me right
things.
now.
It was like a little wooden thing, and like it's got all these Swiss Army knife things. He's like, "Why are you giving me this? Like seriously?" It's like, I thought it was cool. Anyway,
I think they are cool. If you have thoughts on how you might fake your own death, let us know. Send us an email and we'll share it out on a future episode. You can email us at somuchcrime@gmail.com. You can also contact us on Instagram. Dee, what's our Instagram handle?
Our Instagram handle is somuchcrime_so-little-time.
So let us know, and we would love to share all of your wonderful ideas. Dee needs some tips. On our next show, we'll discuss all of Dead Man Running.
Who is Kim Avis? If he didn't drown, where did he go?
What was he running from? And here's a hint: it's definitely a lot of crime.
That's on the next So Much Crime,
So Little Time. So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of Mind Glove Media. The executive producer is Paxton Caloriso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Our theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show on your podcast app. And don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.